In a letter to his son, John D. Rockefeller, the richest man on earth, wrote, "Only by being able to endure what people cannot bear can you do what people cannot do." This is so profoundly deep, I'm gonna repeat this to you. Only by being able to endure what people cannot bear can you do what people cannot do. He's effectively saying the Founders Podcast maxim that you and I are gonna talk about today. Excellence is the capacity to take pain. Anything that is excellent requires you to negotiate with a world that's going to push up against you. And that means that you're gonna end up feeling discomfort. Therefore, the capacity to deal with pain is important. And if you wanna see that maximized in a human being, you look at Elon Musk in 2002. He just sold PayPal and personally netted $180 million. Most people would go retire and sit at the beach. But Elon's built different. He decides to put his money in two of the hardest industries, electric cars and rockets. To give you a little context, the last successful American car company was Chrysler in 1925. Over the next 80 years, hundreds tried and failed. It's because a car is the most complex consumer product you can imagine. A car is 10,000 unique parts. If one part is missing, you don't have a car. If one part is wrong, you have a lawsuit. And if you can't make 100,000 of them a year, you don't have a business. Then, for the rocket company, before SpaceX, there was no such thing as a successful commercial rocket company. It was essentially a duopoly of defense contractors, Boeing and Lockheed Martin, supplying parts to NASA at massive aerospace margins. It's 2002, the year he starts SpaceX, and months later, he suffers the greatest grief a human being can suffer. His first child, Nevada, dies. Sudden infant death syndrome. Any other man would crumble. But Elon does not. He doubles down and buries the grief in the work. Then from 2002 till 2008, he's almost personally funding both companies, both of which are failing throughout this time. 6 years, more than 2,000 days of unpredictability. In Tesla, they realized how naive they were regarding costs and ease of production. The Tesla Roadster, which they priced at $92,000, thinking it would cost them $65,000 to make, actually ended up costing $140,000. So they were losing $50,000 on each car sold. They had hundreds of customers who had paid deposits, and the more cars Tesla built, the faster the company would go bankrupt. It was a death spiral. In SpaceX, they only had enough money for 3 launches. And in 2006, 2007, 2008, 3 consecutive years, 3 consecutive launches, all failed. Of the 180 million he made from PayPal, he had put 100 million in SpaceX, 70 million in Tesla, and 10 million in Solar City. By 2008, which is the worst year for him, he is personally bankrupt. Had to borrow money for rent and household expenses. His marriage of 8 years was breaking and is filed for divorce. The pain is multidimensional, personal as well as financial. But Elon doesn't stop. He endures the pain. He gambles everything he has at the fourth launch. If this failed, there was no fifth launch possible. September 28, 2008, 9 minutes and 31 seconds after liftoff, SpaceX became the first private company in human history to put a rocket into orbit. This success got them $1.6 billion NASA services contract, and the company thrived thereafter. This success came after 3 failed launches, 120 million of burnt capital, and endless pain. In 2026, which is next year, SpaceX is planning a $1.5 trillion with a T IPO. In December 2008, Tesla, his car company, was 72 hours from death. Elon didn't have the cash, so he scraped together his last $20 million by borrowing from SpaceX and his friends. In the boardroom, he said, I'm putting in everything I have. If you don't match me, we all go to zero tonight. By showing he was willing to go bankrupt alongside them, he embarrassed the investors into folding. They signed the deal at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, literally hours before the company would have dissolved. That financing saved Tesla from sure death. He later secured $50 million investment from Daimler, over 400 million debt from US government, and revolutionized automobile industry. Here's the crazy part. Tesla has a market cap of $1.6 trillion today. Rest all automakers combined have a market cap of around 1.2 trillion. One company, Tesla, is bigger than entire automobile makers combined. Excellence is the capacity to take pain, and Elon proved he could take it more than anyone else. Welcome back to Billionaire Best Friend Maxim Monday, episode 3. There isn't a single book that reads, Hey, I had this idea, I started it, everything went great. The end. It doesn't happen. The best maxim in the history of entrepreneurship is from the founders of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. This guy named Isadore Sharp. He said, Excellence is the capacity to take pain. How many people want to achieve greatness? Everyone. But anybody that's ever done anything difficult knows the euphoria and terror it takes. It's the entrepreneurial emotional roller coaster. It's important to talk about this precisely because it is supposed to be hard. James Dyson, who's worth more than $20 billion today, finishes his autobiography by saying, Listen, it's easy for me to celebrate my doggedness now. I made 300 million last year, but I'd be lying to you if there weren't times where I went inside my house, had my wife look at me like I'm a failure, and cry myself to sleep. I got up and did it again anyway because excellence is the capacity to take pain. We see this over and over again. This idea is as true for Elon as it was for Dhirubhai Ambani, the man who built a capitalist empire in a socialist country. He started with 500 rupees and created a 65,000 crore empire. And just like Elon, he faced numerous years of intense hardship, intense pain, which even costed him his half body. He suffered a stroke which paralyzed entire right side of his body. One of the most painful parts of his career was in 1982 when he became the target of the infamous Bear Cartel led by Manu Manek. To give you a little context, Manu Manek, this guy was no ordinary trader. He owned the system. He was the de facto operator in chief of the Bombay Stock Exchange in the late 70s and early 80s. His business model was built on information asymmetry and fear. He was the lender that brokers went to. He controlled money flow. So he knew who was over leveraged. Then he would use his evil double cross strategy. Directors of companies lacking liquidity would borrow from him to buy their own stock to prop up the stock price. He charged them interest on borrowed money. Then, here's the evil part, he shorted that very stock because he knew the director lacked liquidity and he controlled their money flow so they couldn't defend the price and thus make money short selling. He was so powerful that no company could pay dividends or pick directors without him. If they defied him, his Bear Cartel crushed their stock till they went bankrupt. If you didn't bow to the Black Cobra, your stock would hit the floor. And in 1982, he came for this new phenomenon, Dhirubhai Ambani. And the reason I call him phenomenon and not just a man is because he was anti-establishment, revolutionary who was winning. Before Dhirubhai, only the elites invested. He convinced the common man to buy Reliance shares and realized that if he kept his stock price high, he could raise more capital on easier terms and expand without the need to go begging to the banks or lenders like Manu Manek. To him, the stock price wasn't just a number, it was his credibility. Therefore, for Manu Manek, Reliance was a threat to his business model, which relied on his small group of brokers controlling everything. Dhirubhai was bringing in hundreds of thousands of small retail investors who were loyal to him, not the exchange. If Dhirubhai succeeded, the Black Cobra's ability to manipulate the market would disappear. He had to kill the Reliance phenomenon before it became too big to handle. The first episode I ever made on this podcast was on Dhirubhai Ambani. So, to get to know about Dhirubhai Ambani's story in more detail, I would encourage you listen to the entire podcast. Continuing here, in early 1982, Reliance announced a massive 50 crore rights issue to borrow money from investors to backward integrate into manufacturing. In the stock market, this is a moment of extreme vulnerability. If the stock price falls below the rights price, the entire fundraising fails. Manek saw this as the ultimate opportunity to kill Reliance and thought, if I hammer the stock now, I can kill his expansion and make him beg me for a loan. In April 1982, Manek and his bear cartel short sold 1.1 million shares, driving the price from 131 down to 121. Dhirubhai realized that if the stock price crashed further, his fundraising plans via rights issue would fail. Millions of retail investors who showed trust in him would panic and lose their life savings, and the equity culture he helped build would be killed, and investors would revert back to safe bets like gold and fixed deposits. Dhirubhai would lose his primary source of power, the public's trust. It was absolutely existential for him. His business model would collapse if he didn't win this fight. He endured this pain, gambled everything, every bit of liquidity he had. Through his associates called Friends of Reliance, he bought almost 8,70,000 of 1.1 million shares that were short sold, used every bit of liquidity he could find, even routing funds from overseas NRIs. If the bears had more staying power than him, or if the government had intervened on the side of the bears, he would have gone bankrupt supporting his own stock. In those days, the Bombay Stock Exchange operated on a 14-day settlement cycle. At the end of the cycle, the short sellers were legally required to either deliver the physical share certificates or pay a penalty to carry the trade forward. When the settlement day arrived, the Friends of Reliance refused to take the cash settlements. They demanded physical delivery of the 1.1 million shares. Manek's cartel obviously didn't have the shares since they had hoped to buy it at crashed levels of 80 to 90 rupees per share due to short selling, which Dhirubhai didn't let happen. Think about this. To avoid delivery, they had to pay a carry forward charge called Undha Badla. It's basically penalty. Ambani's camp demanded an unprecedented penalty of 25 rupees per share. Some sources say that it was as high as 50 rupees per share. The bears were trapped. They couldn't find enough shares to buy back because the Friends of Reliance held them all and the penalty was draining their capital. The situation got so chaotic that BSE was forced to close for 3 days to prevent a total market collapse. When it reopened, the bears were forced to buy back Reliance shares at any price to fulfill their obligations, driving the stock price up to a record 201 rupees. Since most shares were held by Dhirubhai and his associates, what would have been a 100% sure death blow turned into a massively profitable opportunity. But to achieve this, he was likely using every favor, every connection, and every bit of hidden liquidity he had. It was his entire war chest. He put 22 crores in it when Reliance's annual profit for year 1982 was 29 crores. So he risked 75% of total profit just to win a street fight against Manu Manek. And he won. The Cobra lost. He survived, but his venom was forever gone. No one dared touch Reliance stock that way ever again. A media article from those days reported he didn't just want to win, he wanted to annihilate the opposition so they would never dare touch Reliance again. Dhirubhai reminds me exactly of John D. Rockefeller. John also approached business like war and was willing to endure more pain than his competitors, and in this process suffered from so severe stress that he lost every single strand of hair from his body to alopecia. The lesson is simple but not easy. By endurance we conquer. Steve Jobs saw this from a different lens. His take on it was, the reason you have to love what you do is because it's so hard and so painful that if you don't, you'll quit. And he repeated this over and over again, that what separates the successful entrepreneurs from the non successful ones is just pure perseverance. So it doesn't matter if you approach business as war, endure pain for the sake of winning against your opponents, or you endure pain because you are so in love with your work, almost as if it's your baby. Achieving excellence requires enduring pain. Excellence is the capacity to take pain. See you again next Monday. Next Monday.